Smart. I could even mute my screen.
All right.
That would have been a good idea a few minutes ago.
Now we know that you're a clown hating, balloon hating, everything fun hating.
I said I like trapeze artists.
You know, Kyle has already started recording, right?
Oh,
Go.
okay. Well, why don't we start this meeting? All right. Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order.
Wendy?
Wendy's
I'm
not
here.
here.
Sorry.
Oh, there you are. No, that's not. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. And we have a public hearing. A May 4th and 5th, 2021 annual town meeting proposed warrant articles for appropriation of funds, ordinance amendments, and ordinances. Okay. All right. Do we have anybody with anything to say out there? Okay, hearing nothing, I would take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Just if I may,
Actually,
John, I don't know whether this is how it was published, but in the public hearings legal notice, it states that the it will be at 4 p.m. on March 8th. So, you know, if somebody was thinking they were going to propose a warrant article and
That
did
was
not,
what was originally scheduled, yeah.
yeah, but I'm just pointing that out. So if that wasn't changed, then the public notice was 4 p.m. They would have a valid discomfort with their loss of opportunity.
so Derlin, have you changed that, right? You reposted the time?
So the posting is for 6:30.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
So this legal notice isn't what appeared in the paper?
I think at the time it went in the paper, it was still scheduled for 4 o'clock, because you have to post it a couple of weeks in advance. But it was corrected on the website and on the postings, so I think you're fine.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we voted on that. Minutes. Approval of minutes from February 16, 2021.
Move approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Approval of minutes from February 22, 2021.
Move approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And approval of minutes from March 1st, 2021.
Move approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, thank you. Appointments, recognitions, and resignations, none presented. Consent agenda, none presented. Unfinished business, report on meeting with ambulance service. Okay,
I sent you that memo. Did everyone get a chance to read that?
Yep.
Very good.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, as we got into the meeting, it became apparent that we should, in order to have a very good ambulance schedule and coverage, that we really need to make sure that the Somersville area does have a full-time ambulance presence out there. So that was the gist of that. And Basil and Mike and Jim Willis are also all here tonight. So we're all prepared to talk about that meeting as you see fit.
I would just like to, thank Mike. And I mean, Mike, that's a lot of work for all these questions. And I just appreciate having it to read through and think about and try to make sense of it all. So I appreciate your extra effort.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would second that. I mean, the consideration that, again, we talked about the fire calls and everything else, but the addition of the ambulance and the willingness to sort of remain open-minded about what really is the best course of action is really appreciated.
Sure, yeah, thanks.
Okay, is someone going to present this, or are we going to accept it as read?
Well, it was presented for your consideration, so I would assume if you have any questions on what went on and what our conclusions were, this is the time to ask. I don't know if Mike, you want to make a formal presentation on the meeting?
Well, I don't know if we need to make a formal presentation. I think the board just needs to be aware that, the changes that we're thinking about making are pretty dramatic and significant new direction that we're going in. Obviously, the changes in what we plan in Northeast Harbor is going to, reduce the estimated costs by quite a bit. But I think the board and the warrant committee need to keep in mind that, the Northeast Harbor project, hopefully if it goes through and it's all approved, will begin first and probably finish first in Sonesville. There's a lot of unknowns up there still. One of the biggest issues we have up there is water, the lack of. We have no potable water in that building. It's all piped in from across the street. And then we're going to have to take a hard look at the building and see if it's going to be feasible to renovate that enough to make it habitable for 24/7 crews. So there's some unknowns out there that we need to work on in the next few weeks to make sure everything falls into place and we can get this done. But I think the biggest thing everybody needs to remember is that we can't, at least if we're going to see this through, we can't start and finish the Northeast Harbor project and then later on to say, oh, let's not do Sonesville. This is all tied together, so we need to consider both of these projects as we move forward with improving the fire coverage and then taking in the EMS coverage for the town. I think those are probably the biggest things that people have to remember now and 2 or 3 years from now, while we're still working probably on the Sonesville project up there.
John, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mike, in your opinion, are we better off doing the two separate versus going back to like I don't know what phase or what number it was, but like the brand new building, like down in the, not where we're thinking about it now, but the sort of the $10 million do you think that it's better, you're better off to have something in Northeast and Sonesville versus one larger project in Northeast?
Yeah, I do. When we took in the EMS element, that kind of changes things.
It
And
does, yeah.
and as I told, I think it was in my one of my responses to the questions too. Originally in my strategic plan, we were just going to have 2 firefighters covering 24 hours. Now with EMS, you have to have, or you need a minimum of 4. Every time the ambulance goes out, you lose 2 people on that ambulance. So you have to have 2 just in case for a second ambulance call or fire call. So when we went from 2 to 4, it made sense to split them, and provide coverage in Sonesville and Northeast instead of having all 4 in Northeast Harbor.
John, can I ask you a question?
Yep.
So, it looks as though the obviously you talked about it being in phases, doing the Northeast Harbor one first, but the fact that they are tied together and the Sonesville one is not an option to be considered after, I wonder how we're going to present that. I understand that we're just asking for, we're considering asking for approval from the taxpayers to get more detailed plans, but if we ask, we're not asking for the funding for the package, the 2 buildings. So that concerns me a little bit, because if they shut us down after we're halfway through, if we decide to go forward with this, that's problematic. Do you have any thoughts on that?
It's a possibility, and I guess if for some reason the voters just don't want to put any money in the Somerville station or do anything up there, we'll have to, take a step back and see what we can do. The plans of the Northeast Harbor building, if it's approved, will be able to house 4 personnel if we need to. I made room enough there where we had a couple extra bunk rooms, so if we need to staff up to 4. Matter of fact, we may have to anyway, even with Somerville approved, because there's going to be that gap between when the ambulance ceases operation and Somerville will ever be ready. So there will be, a time that we may have to put all 4 personnel in Northeast for a little bit. But I don't have any real answer for you to say if Somerville's out of the picture, then this is what we're going to do, except for we'll just have to go back and make, what we can do in Northeast Harbor and, have all our staff down there.
Well, maybe it's a question asked better of Derlin also. Is there a way to present this to the taxpayers in such a way that it's understood this is not a one building and then hopefully a second? Or is there a way to wrap this up so that it's,
I think you could wrap that up at the town meeting with people, because they're voting on an engineering study only.
right?
And we didn't have, and this came in, for the engineering study came in too late to get Somerville considered at this point. So you're a little bit on the defensive, but I think what my memo and what we can implement and what we can accentuate at the town meeting is, this is the direction we think that the town needs to go in.
Okay.
Do it in phases. If you don't, what we'll do is we'll come up with another plan that will work. It will just have to be something different than what we did. I would like to think that if we present it correctly, then it would have a lot of support, particularly since, and I don't know, did you guys share those GIS figures for the calls? Did you send that to the board, Mike? For the fire
I
and
did.
EMS?
No, I did
I'll
not.
send that out. Do you have copies of those you could send out to them tomorrow? I've got copies.
I do. Yes, I do. And actually, I think Kyle said he could bring them up tonight if you want to look at them. But if not, I can send those out. But basically, what the town manager's referring to is we were able to GPS plot all our fire calls and all our EMS calls in Mount
Oh,
Desert.
good.
So we'll forward those to you, and you'll see how, as I said in the past, 50% of our fire calls are in the village of Northeast. So you'll see a big red clump there, but you'll also see a lot of red clumps in the Somerville and Pretty Marsh area where we go to fire calls. And the same with the EMS calls. So to give you a little bit better visual idea of where our calls are.
Okay, good.
I think it would make a fairly compelling case that you would want to have a presence in Somerville when you see the amount of calls that are going out to Pretty Marsh. Which one is that, Kyle? Is that the fire or the EMS?
That is fire.
That's fire. Okay, there's your fire. And like Mike says, you can see the big red clump in the lower right-hand side of where Northeast Harbor is. Lower center, I should say. And then you could see that they're more scattered out. Could you put up the EMS ones, Kyle? Throw that one up. Okay, so you could see that there's quite a bit of
Derlin,
calls.
can I interrupt you, Derlin?
Sure.
The map that you're looking at now is one that I did today.
Okay.
And that has, I believe you're looking at ambulance calls, not fire calls.
You are. Those are ambulance.
Yeah.
Um,
And they came from 2 different systems. So I would just encourage everyone to think about this as raw data at this point. We haven't really hammered it down for, refinement to make sure it's spot on. But the,
I couldn't hear what you said.
so that's also, this map you're looking at has Bar Harbor in it as well. The purple, I think, is Mount Desert, and the darker ones are Bar Harbor's calls. So we can break those out any way you want to. I can run for a couple minutes.
Wow.
Huh.
I want to say something. I really think this makes a lot of sense, this further revised plan, because we have heard, anecdotally and officially from the EMS and the fire department that while we may have more fire calls in Northeast Harbor, we got a big town. And when an ambulance is on call, adding that, and it's an emergency, which it is, adding that extra distance from Northeast Harbor to get to help someone might make a huge difference. Matter of life and death in some cases. So I think it's great that we're talking now about having a functioning outpost in the western part of the town. I'm wondering if there's, I know we're up against a timeline, but it seems to me that from what we've heard, we've got to get cracking on this. Both the addition to the Northeast Harbor Fire Department and the eventual addition in Soamesville. And I'm wondering what you feel, maybe this is a question for Basil, maybe it's for Mike, of what you're seeing as the timeline for the addition in Soamesville. I know there's some, Mike mentioned some problems there, but what are you thinking?
Mr. Chairman, you want me to address that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll start off, but I think Basil probably should chime in after me a little bit. We may have found a possible funding source to pay for an engineering study for Soamesville right away, instead of having to wait next year for next year's budget. Because the fire department reserve is tapped out. I've spent everything I could on the engineering studies for Northeast Harbor. So with that being said, if we have the funding, we can start on that project up in Soamesville right away. We can get the engineer up there, have a look at the building, see what it's going to take to get it up and running, and how much it's going to cost and everything like that. We usually turnaround time in those things is about a month or two. And then we'll have, hopefully we can come back to the board and have a floor plan and, some concept drawings like we did with the Northeast Harbor project. And then, we'll discuss it, go back and forth, see what's involved. We'll get some rough numbers of how much it's going to cost. After that, and if the board likes what they see, then we're going to have to come up with, the money to do the actual bidding services or the package there. And that's where it may extend the timeline out for that Soamesville project. The other option the board may want to consider is we may be able to have this done by November. And I'm not sure if a special town meeting is something that you want to entertain or not, but that certainly may hurry things up on the Soamesville side of things. And
Yeah.
Basil, I don't know if you want to chime in a little or.
Yeah. So with the ambulance service is going to help out with this. And the idea is to obviously try and catch this project up to some extent with the Northeast Harbor project. Because I think the faster you could do them, whether it be together or right after each other, I think the better for the town to provide a better service in that area that's traditionally been a little bit underserved. Without knowing really what it's going to take to, get that building up to snuff, it's hard to say what the timeline will be, but depending on what happens, it may be a smaller project than the Northeast Harbor one. So that may help speed things up. But at this point, I really don't know, but I think, if they can get approved at a similar time or at the same time, I think it would definitely help the project go forward. I don't know how that works on your end, but
Well,
it does seem like if it was presented as a package deal, it might help get that going.
I guess that's what I'm getting at. Is there this year we're hoping to pass at town meeting the engineering study for Northeast. Is it conceivable that we could, and then next year would be the building itself. Is it conceivable that both buildings could be on next year's warrant?
I think
the explanation, I think it was Jeff was bringing this up, the explanation of the whole, how the whole thing looks.
Yeah.
It's a little easier to fathom, then we're doing this and no, now we're gonna do this, you know, I think it would be good to present it as a whole.
Right. I think that should be the goal of the group, is to try and have the project ready as a whole for the town. So it's one vote or whatever it takes to get it done. You know, whether it be the timeline, the projects happen at different times, but the funding for the project is one thing. I think that should be the goal.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to do it without a special town meeting.
Well,
Because even if the concept plans are funded, which they are, looks like they are now, we're gonna have to go back to the town and ask for, we asked for 300,000 for the engineering part of Northeast Harbor. So somebody's gonna have to go back to the town and ask for probably a few $100,000 for the same thing on Sonesville.
and there's no way that can happen for this meeting. It's too,
No, I mean, things close tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah.
And we couldn't do that through where that require, unless we get the money privately and we're asking the town to accept that as a gift, I guess. We couldn't fund it through a special town meeting because the tax rates have already been set, correct?
Unless you're gonna bond. Or you could accept a gift. It's either a gift or bond.
Okay. And I would just add, you know, it's in a weird way, I think what has transpired over the last few weeks here is going to result in a better outcome for the residents of the town of Mount Desert. And it's unfortunately kind of timely. You think a couple weeks ago we had 3 fatal fires in 1 week, 2 involving children, and it just really makes you think about, as Martha said, a few extra minutes in response time is life and death a lot of times. So,
Mike, I just want to say that I know this has been grueling. It's been going on for a few years, over a year now, of this back and forth and changes and different plans. And I really admire your flexibility and how the way you guys have been working together on this to try and come up with a plan that works. I think it's terrific. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you.
And I think too, like, not giving up, like, we do care and we do support you. And I think not giving up on us, like helping us along the way, has been really important too. So just, again, you're right, Martha. Thank you.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, I think I did have a full head of hair when I started this.
No, you didn't.
I
remember
did?
you from 20 years ago.
COVID, Mike. We can blame it on that.
Nice try.
Okay, thanks, John.
I didn't either.
This is Donna
Okay.
Reed. Am I allowed to say anything?
Sure.
Okay, I just want to say, as a resident of Northeast Harbor and Soamesville, I love the idea of getting that coverage, because it is more than a few minutes from Northeast over to my side, the other side of town that I reside in. And I think that this is really critical, and I hope that there's some way that you can figure it out to make it happen, because I think that the coverage is really long overdue and would be much appreciated, at least by this resident.
And this one,
Yeah.
really. No, it is great.
Yeah, I'm very excited and hopeful. Thanks.
Okay, so we're going to leave it as it stands for the engineering study. Is that correct? And come back at a later time with another figure to do an engineering study for Soamesville, and probably include in that same special town meeting money for the construction costs of both facilities. Is that correct? Am I getting that right?
No.
You do the town meeting for the construction costs.
Yeah.
But that would be in May of
That's
next
what I'm
year.
saying. I'm
Maybe
saying
next
that,
year.
are we going to wait until next year to go for anything more from the town in terms of bonds?
I think we have to.
Not if we have a special town meeting.
Oh,
I think one of the things you want to look at in a special town meeting tends to have a much lower participation by people. So if you want to get a real cross section of the town, your annual town meeting is going to give you a much better feel for the voters than a special meeting. So I would think, for an engineering study, something fairly limited like that, but I think for building the facilities, that a special town meeting may not be the way to go, but that's just my advice. You could do whatever you want with it.
Okay, so we're gonna have a special town meeting for the engineering costs for Soamesville.
Right.
Right.
If
Right.
necessary.
And so that both projects are ready to be bundled and put before
Following.
the taxpayers in May of 2022.
All right, okay, that sounds good. Good.
Hey,
Okay. Anything else on this? Guys, thanks a lot. Mike, Basil, awesome, thanks. I really appreciate it.
Jim and Jim.
And Jim, sorry, Jim.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks.
All right. Review and final votes on warrant articles for May 3 and 4, annual town meeting, including third-party requests. Okay. Okay. Okay, so these warrant articles that we're looking at here in our packet, Derlin.
Article 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, we're gonna just go ahead with these, all right?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, so we have Article 1, to see if non-voters shall be allowed when recognized to speak during the 2021 annual town meeting.
that's your standard.
Vote to recommend passage.
Second.
Great, all in favor?
Aye.
I
Any opposed?
Don't
Do
we
we
have
have
to go by individual vote?
Heidi, do
like
you
we
want to
did
do
last
it
time?
individual vote or do you want to?
Well, we only need to do individual votes if there's money involved. Is that correct or not?
That I don't know.
I mean, we don't have very many here.
Martha Dudman votes to recommend passage.
Wendy Littlefield votes recommend passage.
Jeff Wood votes recommend passage.
Nat Hart votes to recommend passage.
And John McCauley votes to recommend passage. Okay. Article 2, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept and expend on behalf of the town additional state, federal, and other funds, including unconditional gifts of money received during the fiscal year 2021 for town purposes, provided that such additional funds do not require expenditure of local funds not previously appropriated.
Jeff Wood recommends passage.
Martha Dudman seconds.
Okay, Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Nat Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye.
Now,
Okay.
on Article 3, John, you've got a list of your agency requests, that spreadsheet, everyone got that, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
So once you go through that and vote those, then we can fill in the totals for each of the categories: libraries, recreation, village improvement society, and public social service agencies. So I've got a spreadsheet for that once you vote those requests.
I say something?
yes, go ahead.
On the article that you just passed or recommended, that is an article that gives you a vehicle to accept a gift towards the engineering fees right through the Board of Selectmen meeting, as opposed to going to a special town meeting for that.
Right. That's if the money is raised privately.
Right.
Right.
That gives you, if they give you the entire amount, then you can do it at a Board of Selectmen's meeting instead of a special town meeting.
Maybe a donor out there, who knows?
Maybe that would be awfully handy.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Article 3, to see what sum the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 851 libraries, village improvement societies, recreation, and public social service agencies for the 21-22 town budget.
So do you want to go down through your spreadsheet, and then once you figure that out, once you pass those in, or do you want to vote them as a block? I can tell you what they are as a block, or do you want to go and vote them on each individual agencies? Your choice.
Like blocks.
You like blocks? Okay.
The only, yeah, the only one I had trouble with was the one that the folks didn't show up when they were given 3 different chances.
You can always take that out if you want.
Yeah.
They even expressed that they weren't going to be able to come, and they understood the what the ramifications were. I think it was $300.
It was only $300.
That was small.
Yeah, it was
Let
like
me-
literally 1/1000% of their
Yeah.
overall budget.
So I wouldn't mind voting this as a block.
Okay, your libraries would be 35,500. That would include your Northeast Harbor, Seal Harbor, and Soamesville libraries. So that warrant article, if you vote that, would be 35,500.
So I would move approval for library funding to be $35,500.
Second, Martha Dudman seconds.
Okay, Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. I vote aye.
Okay, the next one would be your village improvement societies. That would include the Pretty Marsh Community Association, the Northeast Harbor Village Improvement Society, the Seal Harbor Village Improvement Society, the Soamesville Village Improvement Society, the MDI Historical Society, the Great Harbor Maritime Museum. If you vote that as a block, that would be $78,315.
I'm sorry, 315 or 350?
315, yes.
I mean, again, I know that it's late in the game to be having this discussion, but to lump in the groundskeeping costs with village improvement societies, it troubles me. So I would love to see that looked at. I am happy to leave it as is for a year, but I want that needs to be broken out somehow differently, because it's just very different than putting flowers on a bridge. It's maintaining property. It's not the same.
I'll move that we support the village improvement societies to the tune of $78,315.
I would second that.
Okay, Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye.
The next one is recreation. The neighborhood house, general, youth, community events, and the Acadian Little League for a total of $90,000.
Okay,
I move support for the recreation for the town in the figure of $90,000.
I would second that, Wendy.
Okay, Martha, how do you vote? Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just have a question. You got,
Yeah.
so what were you said the neighborhood house? Does that include?
General youth and community events in the Acadian Little League. 88,000 for the neighborhood house, 2,000 for the Acadian Little League.
Right, okay. So you lump all that into recreation, okay.
Yes.
Yep, okay.
Okay, Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart abstains.
And John votes aye. Okay.
And the last category is your social service agencies. That includes the WIC program, Island Connections, American Red Cross, Eastern Area Agency on Aging, MD Nursing Association, Down East Horizons, Mount Desert Nursery School, No Island Explorer this year, Mount Desert Chamber of Commerce, Hospice Volunteers of Hancock County, Bar Harbor Food Pantry, Down East AIDS Network, Northern Light Home Care and Hospice, Down East Community Partners, Mount Desert Lodge, Otter Creek Aid Society, Life Flight Foundation, Community Health and Counseling, Emmaus Homeless Shelter, MDI Campfire Coalition, Acadia Family Center, Mount Desert Community Development Corporation, no request this year, Island Housing Trust, Northeast Ambulance Company, Families First Community Center, Health Equity Alliance, and the SPCA of Hancock County for a grand total of $128,152.
This is Wendy. I would move approval of $128,152 for social services.
Martha Dudman seconds.
Okay, Wendy, how do you vote? Any further discussion?
Were we gonna remove community health and counseling services?
Thought we were.
I didn't think he mentioned it.
They were the ones that had sent emails.
Yes, they're there for $300.
Yeah, we should take them out, right? I thought we did take them out.
No.
Yeah, I mentioned that early on. So are we going to take them out?
I think we should.
Okay.
So we've got to amend that total. Anybody got a calculator in front of you?
Anybody had a computer does.
You're going to subtract $300 from 128,152.
That's I believe that's 127,852.
So I would amend my motion to be 127,852 for social services.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion?
I was just gonna, no, I was looking through, I'm trying to find my notes from last one, and there was one presentation who had reduced the amount that they had requested because of the reduction in the COVID year, but my note said something like we should just give her the whole amount.
Was it WIC? I think WIC reduced.
It might have been. It was somebody that I thought, you know what, they should just get the whole amount that they always get. And
because I think they went from 675 to 495, and I too thought for that little bit it might be worth.
I think it's a gesture. I mean, that was really honorable of them. But anyway, I don't know. I can't find the actual note that I wrote.
I don't know. I think if somebody's asking for less and they feel that that's adequate, we should give them what they asked for.
Okay.
It was WIC. It was WIC. Anyway, it was 675 in 2020. I would suggest we give them 675, which is only $180 more than they asked for. But that was a note I wrote. I'm not married to it. It's a small amount of money.
All right. Anybody else feel strongly about that?
I would feel strongly about that. So I would agree to go to 128,032 for social services and to give WIC that extra $180.
Okay.
I would second
I don't
that.
have a strong feeling either way. I see both sides of the argument.
Yeah.
We're talking about $180, so.
Yeah.
So it's 128,032, and you want to change WIC to
You're amending it again,
675?
Wendy?
Yes.
Okay, second that.
Okay. Okay, so you got everything you need, Derlin?
I think so. I've got WIC going to 675,
Yeah,
We've got community health and service being removed.
Right.
And so I
Okay.
trust you that it's 128,032. You want to
Okay.
do a second calculation just to be sure, because that's what you're married to once you vote.
Yeah, why don't we just, somebody, yeah, if somebody's got a calculator, that'd be great.
2, 8. Yep, I think that's right.
128,032.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion from Wendy and a second from Martha. Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye.
So your grand total, we got to amend that too. The total coming in was 331,967. So you need to take the 300 off, and then the whatever you added there for the
180.
So it should be,
so you got
yeah, 331,847.
331,847. Got it.
Is that right? You got it? Is that what you got in, Wendy?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Carolyn, how does that compare with
331,847.
last year?
What's
Good
that?
question.
How does that compare with last year?
Let's see, last year we had 301,087.
Okay.
Okay,
Where's the lion's share of that difference? I mean, I know we gave $10,000 to Pretty Marsh, 9,500 that they had not asked in the past. That was a one-time deal so that they could do their deck. But there's another $20,000.
Well, you've got, let's see here.
The ambulance service got an extra 10.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah, that's
Okay,
right. Yeah, the ambulance service.
that's good. And then, so there's, okay,
And there's another one, some of them went up 2,000 or 3,000. here
Okay.
and there, so.
Okay.
that answers that. So people ask me, that's what, now I know.
Okay,
Okay, I'll take
All
care
right.
of that, and get that ready, so it's for the warrant committee, get some accurate numbers tomorrow.
okay, so Article 4, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to increase the property tax levy limit by $0.
Kyle, that's Kyle's article.
Yep,
By the, my calculations to what is being recommended for the budget, we had good growth in the tax base last year, which is part of the formula, as well as the average income growth in Maine is up. Well, this looks at a 10-year rolling average. Both of those factors gave us a buffer of about 227,000 for the LD1. So we're under the limit by 227,000 at this point. So that's a Passover article that we will
Okay.
not be required to pass
good.
or vote on.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
What is that? Are we over the amount about half the time? Figure.
So I've been here since 2007. I think we've only had to vote LD1 maybe half a dozen times. So yeah, it's about 50-50. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We've kind of, with the CIP leveling things off, I think we're closer to a steadier increase and more in line with like I said, the state income growth is a big factor in this.
Mm-hmm.
As long as our budget stays, relatively level, then we should be avoiding the LD1 for the most part.
Good. Great. I will take a motion.
Will there be a Passover motion?
Mm-hmm.
So you want a motion to pass over this article?
Is that what you're looking for, Kyle?
That's a legal question, right? Because I think it's got to be on the warrant. in case anything changes.
Yes.
I think you would want to recommend passage of the limit of 0 so that there's a placeholder in the warrant.
Okay,
And then when it comes time to vote, then the moderator will say this is a passover and the legislative body votes to pass over.
Yeah, that sounds right.
so
Well, I
I
would-
recommend passage of a figure of 0.
Limit. Yep, I would second that.
Okay, Martha, any further discussion? Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dedman votes aye.
Jeff?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Wendy?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Matt?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. Okay. Okay, now
Get your citizens petition.
we have the SEAC petition, the citizens resolution. Okay, now in the past, we voted to allow this onto the warrant. And now we are voting to recommend. Derlin?
Is the thing, if you want to advance it onto the warrant, you're going to recommend passage to put it on
Yeah.
there.
So I would recommend passage of the resolution endorsing the declaration of a climate emergency and emergency mobilization effort to restore a safe climate to be on the warrant.
Second,
Any discussion?
Wait, Wendy, did you move that it be on the warrant or did you move for passage?
Passage. You're
Passage.
recommending Passage of it, yeah.
Thank you.
second,
Okay, any further discussion?
I'm going to be the wet blanket here. First, I just want to say I don't disagree with the intent of this at all. And I said when we saw kind of the preview of this a few months ago, I had some problems with the language in it. And, you know, I'm reading through this explanatory note. And it says, directs the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Mount Desert to develop a plan to bring the activities of the town government to zero carbon emissions by December 31st, 2030. When you read the actual resolution, it's certainly much more expansive than just the activities of the town government. So that makes me a little uncomfortable. I don't think it's an accurate synopsis of what the resolution actually is.
Good point.
so your objection is to the explanatory note that's included here? Yeah,
Yes, there is some language within the document. You know, if you look down, we've got all sort of the pomp and circumstance here, whereas and henceforth and all of that. But when you really, the meat of the resolution is that items A, B, and C down in the lower quarter of the page. And it's just the things that bother me are when I see phrases, we're going to do things as much as possible. Because, you know, there's lots of things we could do. We could, if we're really serious about this, well, it would certainly be possible for us to say, you know, well, there's no more wood burning stoves in the town of Mount Desert. That's certainly possible. We'd never do that, I don't think. But we're saying we're going to do everything possible within this resolution. So the wording there is a little clumsy. I'd love to see something in there about when possible and practical, because not every possible choice is practical. So there's a few little things like that in there, but the main concern really was, if you just read that explanatory note, you'd say, oh, well, this is related to, you know, municipal properties and town vehicles and things like that. But it's certainly much more expansive than that.
Nat, would you be more comfortable if we just struck out that explanatory note and just didn't have it and let people read the petition for themselves?
I mean, that's a possibility.
Because
Mike,
it's hard to boil it down, really, into an explanation in a few words. It's it's quite a document.
it is, yeah. Well, it's quite a document, and it says a lot, but sometimes it's what things don't say that's what's not said is the issue sometimes. If you look at item C, and maybe I'm the only one that feels like this, but when I hear that my government is going to ensure a fair and reasonable transition for all residents, it's a little Orwellian to me, and I don't know why. And furthermore, if you look down right below that, it says, "Be it further resolved." And the warrant article itself, it says it's directing. Well, again, in the explanatory note, it talks about directing the Board of Selectmen to come forward with a plan. But if you look at this item, it's the Sustainability Committee that's coming up with the plan, along with some stakeholders and youth from around the town. So that's a little bit different. And the other thing that I noticed was the wording here is a little clumsy. Right at the bottom of the first page here, it says that they will develop proposals to be submitted to the Board of Selectmen for implementation and integration into the town of Mount Desert comprehensive plan. Well, the Board of Selectmen doesn't come up with a comprehensive plan. There's a comprehensive plan committee that comes up with the comprehensive plan. And depending on how you read that, it could be insinuating that the Board of Selectmen will be amending or adding to the comprehensive plan, which we don't have the legal authority to do. And as we've learned in the past, when something on a document like this directs the board to do something we might not have the legal authority to do, it can make the entire thing a moot point. Just something to consider. I realize this is sort of the language that other communities have used, but I think we could do better, honestly. I'm sure that's just me, but I wouldn't feel comfortable if I didn't point these things out.
It's a good point, Matt.
Darrell, do we have an active comprehensive planning group?
We're gonna, soon, we're gonna have to put a group together to amend it. We do have a comprehensive plan committee.
But isn't that committee a committee that's formed at the behest of the Board of Selectmen anyway?
Yeah.
Any committee that exists theoretically exists as an arm or as a recommending committee to the Board of Selectmen. So,
because the town has to vote for the warrant. For
Right, it
the
has to be approved at the
comprehensive
town
plan.
meeting.
Yeah,
Sure.
It's a town meeting.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have the same concerns that you have, Matt, but
Well, I mean, I want to point out, like, I'm in like the intent, and certainly, getting the community involved, I think is a big thing. Getting the stakeholders involved is a big thing, to sort of moving everything in the right direction. But documents like this, to me, seem more about patting ourselves on the back than actually accomplishing things. And I hate to say that because I know a lot of work's going into this, and I certainly think we should empower our sustainability committee to continue the work they've been doing and maybe expand the work they've been doing. But I don't, just documents like this, I don't know. I'm not comfortable supporting passage of it. I will say that. And that, again, that does not mean I don't support the intent.
I personally, this is Jeff, I don't think we could possibly say or do enough. So I'm on the other side of that. I don't think there's any amount that we could do that would be enough to get behind whatever we can do. There's a lot more possible than we're doing, and we should commit as fully as we possibly can within the scope of our authority to do so.
yeah, I see this as a fairly loose document.
Yep.
It's, there's nothing particularly binding in it.
John, can I speak for a minute on behalf of the Sustainability Committee?
Sure, please do.
I just want, Matt, I really appreciate your concerns. These will be concerns that possibly could, be developed by any citizen if you want to really, look into things. But we really want to point out that this is a goal, and this is our community recognizing that the climate is at a point where we are really going backwards, and we really need to be able to do everything possible for a town. Now, Matt, and anyone that might be dissenting, that goals like this are only to encourage all our departments to do as much as possible. And I really believe a climate action plan will be developed. And I think it encourages all the department heads to look at different things. We might not be able to do everything, but again, this is a goal. And Matt, again, I appreciate your concerns, but I don't think this is telling the town that we can't do nothing. This is telling the town that we need to do more. And I appreciate what you said, Jeff. Thank you.
I also think this is a way for our town. I agree with John. It's a pretty loose declaration, but I think it's also a way for our town to stand up and say, we recognize this is a concern in our time and something that we want to be mindful of when we're making decisions about buildings, for example, or use of, or putting more electric vehicle chargers in town, or whatever we can do, or our waste, what we do with our waste. And I think when enough towns stand up and make a statement like this, it has, our little town isn't going to make a huge difference. But if our town says something, Bar Harbor is saying something, other towns around the state and around the country stand up and say, this is a concern to us, then it starts to have some power. And so I support it because I think it's the intention that I support. And the intent, I think, is to make us all aware.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with all of that, but I think we could do it with I guess a more well-crafted document. That's all I'm saying.
You get a committee writing something.
Yeah, that's right.
Can I say one more thing about the document to the group? That
Yep.
This document was written by youth. It was not written by the Sustainability Committee. We worked with the Sustainability Committee and a member of the Board of Selectmen to help develop this document so the town could recognize there is a climate emergency. And what I really hope is that it's showing the citizens that we believe that we have a problem here and we need to take care of it, instead of saying, well, the Sustainability Committee could do a little more. We're developing a true action plan to make sure our words are heard to the community. And it's just not words. We actually have plans and implementation of events or purchases or energy audits or any of those type of things that could make our town a better place and not go backwards. One of the questions I asked the school, I don't know if everyone is aware from your meeting with the Mount Desert Elementary School Board, but they're in the process that they need to replace 2 boilers. And those boilers, I asked straight up to Dr. Gauss, the only way they could really do it, because of the way the infrastructure is to put oil, but they're going to get a much more efficient burner that was available 20 years ago. But it's small little steps. Putting a pellet boiler in there is not going to be the difference. So I don't want to take a lot of time, but everything in purchases, there really could be possibly a better technology, but it's not the right thing to implement at the time because the cost would outweigh the benefit.
I hope some of the kids that put this together are going to show up at town meeting.
We've invited them.
Yep, they know.
Has this been moved to recommend passage, John?
My screen just blanked out on me.
I think it was moved and
It was moved and
seconded.
seconded, and then we had discussion.
Okay.
Okay, so any more discussion? Nope. Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dedman votes aye.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes no.
Okay, and John votes aye. Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're on to some, it looks like we've got some Luso stuff here. Do we have anyone that can describe what this all boils down to, Derlin?
Kim was on.
Isn't this all the stuff that Noel explained to us a couple of weeks ago?
Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Noel's description sufficed for me.
Yeah, I'm fine too. I just figured that maybe there are other people that were attending tonight.
I did have a question, so I'm glad Kim is actually here. Because Noel didn't really, I guess I didn't get a satisfactory answer. I guess my question is in regards to the lighting ordinance, I'm just concerned about, I guess, enforcement of that. And, what happens if you get a call from someone saying, oh, my neighbor's back porch light is shining into my yard. I think, something needs to be done. Like, how are we going to enforce things like that? I guess is my question.
Good question. I suspect, there are wattage and lumens specified in that ordinance. I'd have to go, if I get a complaint, I'd have to go to the property and take a look at it.
I just picture you out there at like 10 o'clock at night.
No.
On a light meter.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be able to see it obviously unless I did go there at night. Or if they took a picture of it, I guess, or a video, the neighbor.
Right.
Yeah, it's gonna be, it's no different than the ordinance now. A lot of it is standards, right? There are recommendations in the back of the section of the lighting ordinance, but that's as, presented. It'll take some time to, to do it and figure it out, but, it can always be revised, but not only that, it's since we've adopted section 6A6, which is the outdoor lighting, I've never received a complaint, honestly.
Yeah. Plus, we can't enforce anything unless we have it, written in stone. Got a lot of ordinances like that floating around, but anyway, Jerry, do you have your hand up? Okay.
I'm going to speak up for a second on this to satisfy some of the complaints there. This is Phil, again, from the Sustainability Committee. This is basically to explain to residents when they are doing new construction that these are the standards that would be recommended. And I think that basically those best practices at the end are the best you can do. How enforceable they are, Matt, that's when attorneys get involved, and that's why we have people like Noel, and we have to get Andy and other attorneys involved. But I don't think that's what the gist of this ordinance is. It was basically to update the standards because of the changes of LED lighting and how that works, color, temperature, and lumens, and what brightness is. I don't think it addresses it shining in people's eyes. I don't think that was the intent.
I think there was part about overflow into
Light trespass.
Right, but that
as best possible.
And that's also about the dark sky initiative. And keeping lights shining down, and there's lots of good stuff in there, but it's all connected to trying to preserve this planet, and particularly this little corner of it.
And the only other thing I would point out was, and I brought this up with Noel before, because I don't think the town should be in the business of telling people when they can have their Christmas lights up. And as we know, some of those Christmas lights, the bright white are sort of, whatever the color temperature is, way sort of above what is allowed. And it looks like we've just removed anything
We did.
holiday lights.
We did.
So does that now mean that holiday lights are in violation if they're not the correct color temperature, technically?
No, I don't, honestly, I don't think it addresses Christmas lights now that we've taken it out of the requests, because you brought it up at one of the other selectmen meetings. And so we took it out.
Okay, so even if those bulbs are of, a temperature that exceeds what meets code, they're,
Don't go overboard, Matt, with your.
well, no,
lighting.
I'm just saying.
Well, I honestly don't
They have
think
rules that aren't going to be enforced.
I don't think.
Every
Christmas lights are
Luso
right.
item is a result
that.
of people complaining and us telling people what they can't do, which, fine, but there comes a point, if we're making rules that we really have no plans on enforcing, it's a waste of everyone's time. And I'm not saying this is, but it's just, there are some questions worth asking, I guess.
Okay. All right. All right. So what do you want from us on this one, Derlin?
Really nothing, because it's recommend passage by the planning board, that it goes to the warrant committee.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's something you don't have to do anything on, except make your comments like Matt did. So
Okay.
that's all you
Great.
have to do.
Okay. So any more discussion on that? Okay. Why don't we talk about the Steamboat Wharf utility location permit? That's interesting.
Right.
All right. Who's up? Greg?
Yeah, I am. Everybody can hear me. So thanks for taking this on the agenda so late. I can see it's a pretty full agenda. Part of the road utility right-of-way ordinance requires when a utilities run parallel to the road that we get a utility location permit. We're working for Ringing Point LLC property, and we've been working with the Water District and Tony Smith and the Public Works Department to extend the water main, the year-round water main, about 1,000 feet north on Steamboat Wharf Road. The purpose being to provide year-round water to the Ringing Point property. Along the route, we're going to install a hydrant for flushing. It's a shared project with the Water District. The Water District is going to attach any other services that they want from the seasonal line to the year-round line at the end of the project, excuse me. That line will be handed over to the Water District for ownership and maintenance. That's sort of a PUC requirement, but also if you think about what do the public and private people know about maintaining and flushing water lines. So at that point, it become a piece of the Water District's infrastructure. And simply the purpose is to provide year-round water to where it's now terminated, and some fire protection to the general area. I think we gave a pretty detailed description of what it is. So I guess I would entertain any questions, or could share screen or whatever I can do to help you guys understand the scope of it.
Great. Was there ever any discussion about putting a sewer line in?
Well, there is a sewer line in this route. There's a gravity sewer line that runs parallel to where we're putting the water line in. So there is sewer there.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And it starts just a little bit north of the existing pump station next to the library. It goes library, Seal Harbor Library, the pump station, and we have to skirt around some of the infrastructure that the pump station has on the road before we head up past, I guess, the yacht club and to the Ringing Point end.
How many houses do I don't know if you actually put that in there. I was trying to figure out how many residences.
Well, I think there's 13 existing taps along that way. Some of them may be multiple ones. Also includes the tap like to the wharf. The wharf has a couple of flushing taps there as well. And the district is going to be responsible for hooking up their existing customers. So we've been working with them to figure out where to do it, understand their infrastructure. The terminus of last week, we completed ground penetrating radar to show any unidentified utilities where we've put our head in every manhole, culvert, valve box to identify what's there. And seemingly the ground penetrating radar can confirm or find anything else that we're there. And that's kind of where we're at.
And
Great.
the cost is being borne by the owners and by the water district?
Yeah, it's the cost is being borne by private, by the owners. And I guess the water district is responsible for hooking up their existing customers should they want to come off of the existing seasonal line and have a year-round service connection. And they're responsible for that end of it.
Good. And Kim, you actually want our input on this?
I couldn't hear what you said. Do we want your input? I'm happy to hear your input.
No, I'm asking Kim. Kim, are you
Oh.
there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah, you want our
no.
input on this, or is this information only?
Oh, this is, you guys have to approve this utility location permit
All right,
under your jurisdiction. That's why he's before you tonight.
all right. Okay. Well, I think it sounds great. I'd accept a motion.
This is Wendy. I would move approval of the Steamboat Wharf utility location permit as presented.
Second,
That,
Okay, who is that? Who seconded it?
Martha won, tie goes to the runner, so it's Martha.
Okay, Martha, how do you vote?
Martha Dudman votes aye.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Wendy Littlefield votes aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Jeff Wood votes aye.
Matt, how do you vote?
Matt Hart votes aye.
And John votes aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you. I know.
Okay, any other business? Hearing none, I will take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. See you guys later.
Oh, I have quick
What?
question. Phil, should we, I know in the past, the Board of Selectmen has attended, when you've had your in-person meeting for the warrant committee, should we still attend on Zoom, or what are your thoughts on that?
You are invited along with every department head and the school board as in every year. We're
Okay.
gonna try to vote on many of the articles like you did tomorrow night to soften it up, but the education articles will definitely be voted on the night of the 16th. And I've spoken to Nancy Thurlow, Todd Graham, and Dr. Gauss, and they will also be present. So if there's any changes or anything to those particular articles, the rest I think are all pretty straightforward. When you have a department head and you have some numbers there, if there's anything that needed to be changed on any of the fiscal things, that's why we always invited the department heads. And we've always invited you all to defend yourself if we didn't agree. That's why we always invite the warrant committee. The warrant committee always invites the Board of Selectmen to our annual dinner, just in case if there was an disagreement, you would have a chance to explain it. So we're not doing that on the town meeting floor. I think is the biggest reason why we've always invited, and it's fun.
Although it's easier to duck out early on Zoom, so.
Well, you're allowed to.
I also actually had another question regarding, it says on our meeting agenda for tonight that our next scheduled meeting is 6:30 on Monday, March 15th in the meeting room. I'm assuming that that's not true.
That needs to be taken off, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a-
Zoom. Yeah,
Typo.
yeah. We'll always remove that. We don't have, on this master, we haven't removed that. We better. Until such time we actually go back to the meeting room, which hopefully will be not. too
Well, that's
long.
fine, but I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, there is.
Yeah,
I've got my
If we
appointment
keep-
Friday.
Me too,
Yeah.
Jeff.
yeah. See you all at the Regency.
Yeah.
Phil,
Go to Bangor.
Good
Or,
night.
yeah.
Phil,
Good night.
so-
Night.
We already voted, right? We already voted
Yes,
ourselves
we did.
off.
Yeah, we're
Bill.
off.